Go for it, Chris.
Hi, Maajid.
Hello.
So the point I'd like to make is that the referendum result in any normal world, the result of the referendum or the actual referendum is now so debased that it absolutely has to go back to the people. I mean, if let's take the promises that were made, for example. There's going to be no Brexit dividend. There's going to be there's a lot more red tape for business. It looks like there's going to be a huge loss of sovereignty, particularly looking at Gibraltar. I mean, that's the thin end of the wedge regarding sovereignty over Gibraltar. We're not going to be able to carry trade deals across. It certainly doesn't look that way anay.
Well, certainly, Chris, in a no-deal scenario, all trade deals, all contracts will be suspended until we agree with them. At least, the very least, Parliament is going to need to start passing laws in saying, the UK will honour agreements that we had under the EU laws. But, of course, the bilateral countries themselves would have to also pass that on their end.
Yeah. But so the other point I'd like to make is that on the 7th of December, there's going to be a High Court hearing, which has been fast-tracked to the High Court, regarding the corruption that happened during the Brexit referendum. Now, some of this has been proven already. Some of it is allegations. But the very fact that there was such corruption within the Brexit referendum, to my mind, shows that it should actually be voided. Now, obviously, that's not practical. You can't do that. That's unfair to the people that voted. But it is another reason why it needs to go back to the people. And so I don't understand why people can't understand this. And when I talk about corruption, people say, oh, yeah, but Remain lied as well. Fine. If Remain lied, that makes it even worse. So that's really the point I'd like to make. I think it absolutely needs to go back to the people. And I think Parliament are going to vote this down, the withdrawal agreement down, and I think it will go back to the people.
Yeah, how confident are you there, though? Because, Chris, we don't seem currently to have... When I talk about the maths not backing Theresa May's deal, I can say the same for what I would like, which is a people's vote. I don't think the arithmetic is there quite yet. So what needs to happen, in your view, for us to achieve that?
So I don't think it is, but I think what's going to happen is things are going to mount. So, for example, like I said, you've got the High Court hearing on the 7th of December, which is going to be around the same time that Parliament debates the withdrawal agreement. And I think gradually, I hope, anyway, MPs are going to coalesce around the idea of rejecting the withdrawal agreement and finding a mechanism to put it back to the people via a referendum, and hopefully with an option to remain. Because the last poll that I looked at today showed that there's a 12% majority now in favour of remaining in the European Union. The notion it's the will of the people. Well, Parliament, our latest manifestation in Parliament was voted in 2017. So that democratic vote supersedes the 2016 democratic vote in the referendum. Therefore, the representatives in Parliament that were voted in 2017, however they vote, is the latest will of the people. Yeah,
well, this is it, Chris. I mean, that's why I've got no truck with people calling in and saying, if this doesn't pass, because Brexit means Brexit, there will be, violence on the streets. And then they're saying, well, I'm not threatening violence. I'm just telling you there will be violence. And I'm like, hold on a minute. To say that our entire democracy rests upon your interpretation of a non-legally binding vote that happened 2 years ago, and then to go on to claim that if you don't get your personal way, the way that not even every Brexiteer agrees on, but you, the caller, the Brexiteer who wants it to happen in this precise way, to suddenly then conclude that means we don't live in a democracy. It's just, frankly, it's politically amateurish.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think there's a constituency in this country now where even the rule of law doesn't trump Brexit. They don't necessarily I don't mean that they're undemocratic. I don't mean that they don't believe in democracy. But when it comes to Brexit, democracy is secondary. Brexit is everything, and I think you see that in people's arguments. They're trying to. I mean, it's apparent in the arguments that you have with certain people. They're running around in circles trying to explain their position. Yet democracy has to be just that. It has to be paramount over everything. And if there's corruption, if this was a general election, if this was in a constituency, the level of corruption that's already been proven will be enough to void that
but as you've quite sensibly said, Chris, I think what we need to do is just go to a second people's vote rather than try and make a case for cancelling the original, because of course that wouldn't necessarily be practical nor wise. I do encourage people to go to on social media, on Twitter, there's a @GuitarMoog. Who's written his own letter responding to Theresa May's open letter, making her case for her Brexit plan. His name's Steve Bullock. He's listed himself as an ex-negotiator for the UK in the EU, and therefore self-described as a Brexit geek for Alan Smith MEP. He's also there, describes himself as an anti-Brexit campaigner, but he does appear to have some hands-on experience negotiating for the UK in the EU. Steve Bullock, as I said, @GuitarMoog, MOOG. And he's written his own letter responding to Theresa May's letter, and it's wonderfully detailed as to why he is so vehement in his view that Theresa May's Brexit deal is not worth the paper it's written on. Thank you, Chris, for calling in. We're going to go